Our nation faces one of its toughest challenges, gang violence. Nightly, our fears are fueled by images of carjackings, drive-by shootings, and other random acts of violence. And whether you're just seeing the first signs of gang activity or are surrounded by its brutal and violent reality on a daily basis, your involvement is the key to steering our youth away from gangs. This show is about prevention and hope. It illustrates what people across the country are doing to reclaim our youth. Individuals, communities, and our police are turning the corner on gangs in California and throughout this nation. In city after city, we're turning hopelessness into hope. People like you and me are becoming the agents of change, making a difference in the lives of our young people, one at a time.
There's a disease spreading throughout our nation that's becoming a leading killer of our children. If left unchecked, it will spread and continue to devastate our children, our families, and our communities. That disease is called gang violence.
We have children who right now are living in what I call, as a physician, a terminally ill state, where they have given up on a concept of the possibility of a future.
I think the most frightening thing that you ever want to hear from a kid is, I don't care whether I live or die, and I don't care whether you live or die. And when that mentality becomes epidemic, we're in a lot of trouble.
I'm James Earl Jones, and I'm here to talk about hope. Hope for a nation where many of us have given up when it comes to finding a solution to gangs and violence. That's why we've crossed this nation talking to people who have taken extraordinary steps to rescue their children and reclaim their communities from gang violence. What are they doing to win the war, and how are they doing it? I want to know because I'm the father of a 12-year-old boy. I also care about the community I live in. Whatever happens out there on the streets affects us all. The war against this disease can be won if people like you and me, all of us, get involved. But how? We believe that seeing brings understanding, and understanding brings hope. If by watching, you see where you fit into the solution, the first step will have been taken to bring hope back to our families and our communities. Where do we start? Fear? Because fear is what keeps most people from getting involved in the first place. And why wouldn't you be afraid? It seems every time there's a news story about young people, it's negative. A shooting at a liquor store, a carjacking. Violence is news. But if all we see in the media are negative images of our young people, then the true picture of what is happening in our neighborhoods is being overlooked.
The media is doing the projects the most injustice that they could possibly do. Because I look at the TV all the time, and somebody down here got killed or shot or whatever, drug bust, whatever, they put that on channel 3, 8, 5, 19, 38, any kind of station they can find to put it on. But let somebody do something that's good or something, they won't mention it.
It's a world that every time we turn on TV, you would believe that all of the schools in America are overrun by gangs, guns, drugs, violence, and that's absolutely not true.
Our fears are being fueled by a fatal fascination with gangs. What used to be entertaining stereotypes have now become deadly reality. Gangs have so piqued our interest that we've come to glamorize the gangster subculture. Children are dressing like them. Fashion makers are designing clothes modeled after gangster stereotypes. Children enjoy mimicking them, their attitudes, the way they talk. It's gotten to the point where you can't tell who's in a gang and who's not, and that's become dangerous.
What's going on? From the neighborhood?
Yeah, I'm from the neighborhood. I was born and raised here, and I'm probably gonna die here. Man, what you coming up to me and asking me for? You gonna do something to me?
I think it's really become fashionable to be a gang member. You can buy clothes and dress up like a gang member on the weekend just for fun, but that can get you killed.
It's a small percentage of youth who are involved in gang violence. To deal with it effectively, we must see it in its proper perspective. Lack of perspective keeps us in fear, and fear keeps us stuck in denial.
You go into a house and here's this mother, and you tell her about some gang activity that involved her son, and she immediately says, no, not my son, it couldn't be, my son is not involved in gangs and so forth. And then you ask to pursue things a little bit further. You mind if we go and check out Junior's room? And time you walk in the room, there's gang writing on the wall, and there's the colors sprinkled all through the room.
And then you have some that come from very good families. Both are professional, split-level home, new car. Kid will finish high school if he doesn't get killed, but he's in a gang and doing all the things that gang members do.
You got young girls, 14, 15 years old, that are picking up guns and doing drive-bys.
Gang violence can cause entire communities to hide under the mantle of denial.
There is no glass bubble in any community that prevents crime, prevents violence, or prevents gangs. The suburban areas will have residents go into the inner city area to buy their drugs and to purchase the weapons, to cause the problems back in the suburbs.
When you talk about the skinhead groups or the white supremacist group, there is denial there also. Because the groups are small in number, there is I want to say, a tendency to deny their existence or deny their activity, but we can see that's not true.
I've spent a great deal of time over the past year traveling throughout America, in small towns, in the Midwest, in towns with less than 1,000 people, who've had drive-by shootings, towns in Montana and North Dakota, Wisconsin. I mean, it's all over the place.
We have, in a city of about 79,000 right now, there are around 250, 300 gang members. We have 4 criminally certified gangs. These include all different ethnic, racial backgrounds. They're not just white, they're not black, they're not Asian, they're not Indian, they're everything.
And for many schools and school districts, that's a very, very scary reality. Because if you accept the fact that you have gang-related activities in your community and possibly on your campus, you have to do something about it.
In Inglewood, you see it more often. Another black brother laying in the coffin. They don't insist a finger on the trigger. Fast stereotype that they call nigga. Jimmy been praying since he was 5, but now he's 15, trying to stay alive. So he fell to his knees and asked why this unknown species has to die. We've been deprived of all our innocence, saying a prayer for hope and renaissance. Peace and love, we got to renew this. Come on, y'all, I know we can do this. The doors are open for religion. Don't trust me to make your decision. We don't have funds to pay for the rescue. We live the way that hopeless slaves do.
There's a lady walking the streets, no care in the world. No need to seek for a goal. A high potential, cause all she needs is a little credential. Just to give to the man with the rocks in his hand. She don't care cause it's all in the plan. Knocking on my window, kicking down my door, and pushing my living room and sniffing for more of that snow. It's killing your brain cells. 2 months later, you'll be in a jail cell. Peace.
We can no longer afford to let fear guide our behavior. We must break through the walls of denial. The personal and financial cost of violence is staggering.
We did a study in Washington, D.C. and found that violence cost about $18 million a month. And much of it was due to health cost, loss of time at work, loss of tourism even.
As we've seen the increase since '87, we've actually doubled our number of gunshot wounds here. Beyond the emotional and humanistic tragedy, there's a very high economic price tag that goes along with this. From 1980 to 1991, the acute and rehabilitation care cost for the spinal cord injured gunshot wounds that we saw here were $78 million. That's an 11-year period. Each case with acute and rehabilitation cost about $140,000, but with lifetime care costs going up near $1 million per case. 70% of our patients here are on Medi-Cal, which means that this is hitting the taxpayer right in the wallet.
We as a society become very tolerant towards violence. 22,000 people across the United States were killed because of violent crimes. 4,000 people in the state of California alone were killed because of violent crimes. 1,000 because of gang-related crimes. I was just recently in Canada, and I asked them how many people were killed across the country, and they said 140. How many in Sweden? 32. How many in England? 175. How many in Japan? 75. Within the state of California alone, because of the gang-related killings, we've killed more people than these countries combined. So I think we as citizens, whether in California or across the United States, really need to wake up to the fact that this is costing us, and this is costing us big.
Communities are forced to spend more and more on gang violence, and the personal costs are still growing. And worse, the persistent assault of gang violence is robbing us of a hopeful tomorrow.
Around Christmas time, my grandmother, the school teacher, was shot and killed by a gang member, by somebody out on an initiation thing. Somebody just shot her in the back. Didn't rob her, just killed her.
My son was 17 years old. His name was Kevin. He was shot and killed for a leather jacket and $8 on November the 4th, 1990.
There was a killing right behind my house. I was a 12-year-old kid. He was approached by a 16-year-old. The 16-year-old asked him, you know, what gang he belonged to. The 12-year-old told him he wasn't from any gang. And 16-year-old still put a 25 to his chest and blew him away right there.
There's been two people that I knew that died. One was Poochie. He had just turned 13. And another boy who was Telly.
My cousin friends, she got stabbed on the leg by a gang member. Once you try to get out, you can't, because they won't let you. If you get out, they'll kill you.
Children dying, people afraid to leave their homes, communities paralyzed. How long do we let this go on? How do we stop it? If we don't all take parental responsibility toward our youth, who will? Americans everywhere have begun liberating their children, their schools, and their communities from gang violence. They're not using any single program, strategy, or policy to do this, but they've been effective because of the comprehensive approach they've taken. The key word here is comprehensive. That means involving the entire community. Our youth, police, civic leaders, churches, schools, former gang members, businesses, and youth-serving organizations. This comprehensive approach is working in urban, suburban, and rural communities.
Now, what I want to talk to you today about is the skinhead or white supremacist type gangs. As with all street gangs, there are general profiles and characteristics that we use to say, hey, this is a street gang member of some type. The trend is violence is out there, and it's indiscriminate.
It's the first time where our community come together with the law enforcement community and bring together other stakeholders into this process and begin to address the problems that the community face on a comprehensive, integrated model.
Once all the players are gathered, their first priority is to assess the nature of the gang problem in the community. Is it an emerging problem, or is it an entrenched chronic problem?
We got big problems when they come to school with a gun in their hand or in their knapsack.
And he does get expelled from school. What happens then? Well, now we have him on the streets for 8 hours more than we had him on the streets before to get 8 hours more worth of trouble out of him.
And the judges tell us, you know, we cannot mandate the parents to restitution. We can do anything we can with the youngsters. They can go clean up bridges and work on Saturdays.
And he's wearing the baggy pants and the big shirt, and he's a sweet kid, lives in Manhattan Beach. They're in denial. They don't want to admit that that's gang attire, what he's involved in.
You're dealing with a myriad of issues.
A key point that a lot of people may not want to be involved in because they don't know how to do it, or it may sound boring, is doing a community assessment. Once that assessment is together, it gives people a common starting ground. This can happen in emerging communities to chronic communities. Because you live in a chronic area does not mean that every young person in that community is going to end up being a hardcore gang member.
Youth involvement in gangs can range from fantasy to wannabe all the way to hardcore. We must understand this so we can identify how deeply they may be involved. This knowledge allows us to use a variety of strategies, a comprehensive approach that includes prevention, intervention, and suppression techniques. Suppression, that means law enforcement. They play a vital role in dealing with hardcore gangs. We count on them. Crime must be dealt with. Communities must be made safe.
When you're fearful, you want to feel safe. So you say, hey, get me the police. You know, when somebody is doing something to my wife or my daughter, hey, get the police.
It's our job to control the behavior of others, especially the violent behavior. The gang members know exactly what we're about. If you commit a crime, we're going to put you in jail. If you don't commit the crime, we're not going to mess with you just for drill. You have to have strong tie-ins with your district attorneys and with your probation department. You all have to work together, and you all have to exchange the information, because gang members play you off against one another. They count on us not talking to one another.
Law enforcement has seen the need to develop new dynamic approaches to suppress violent gang behavior. Agencies across the country are making use of systems that help track and evaluate gang activities. They also see the need in sharing information, criminal surveillances, and gang enforcement training. Some gang suppression units include police, probation, and prosecutors that work as a team to target gangs and gang violence.
Police officers have made just untold arrests. They have died on the streets of all kinds of cities in a very lonely battle.
What we've tried the last 20 or 30 years has not worked. We have arrested people, jails are overcrowded, the community is still not satisfied, crime is still going up in America. It's time to try something else.
Most suppression tactics deal with young people after they become entrenched in gang violence. But suppression is merely a tourniquet on a much larger festering problem. In order to stop the rise in gang violence, we need to get to our children before they reach this stage.
You think I like what I'm going through? Hell, man, this ain't easy for me, man. I have to get up every day and I have to deal with drugs, man. I have to deal with drive-by shootings. I gotta see my homegirl selling herself to make ends meet, man. That don't feel good to me. I don't look up to that kind of stuff. That stuff, man, it hits me inside here and it makes me feel real cold, you know? And it's like I gotta be as crazy in order to survive. And that's not good. That can't be good.
It's not good. Thousands of children are simply trying to survive in a world that appears so indifferent to their needs. For many, gangs provide an unhealthy refuge. In the words of Mother Teresa, children long for somebody to accept them, to love them, to praise them, and to be proud of them. If they do not have these, they will go to the streets, where there are plenty of people ready to accept them. The child can be lost. We can change that. As an individual, a group, or government agency, all of us together. People everywhere are getting involved in prevention and intervention. These methods offer endless possibilities for hope. Many have started with something as basic as graffiti removal. Graffiti is the newspaper of gangs. It's a way to mark off their turf, to report the killing of a gang member, to warn rival gangs of retaliation. Graffiti is also a form of invasion. It demoralizes the entire community. Quick and rapid removal is a vital step in regaining control.
I work with, Community Youth Gang Service, and I'm on a graffiti removal team. Sometimes it requires us the use of some of the youth on the summer program to assist us in removing graffiti around some of the neighborhoods that surround the schools. And our main goal is just to create a safe passage. You know, we have a lot of gang problems here, and removing graffiti makes a difference. You know, it makes the kids feel safe when they're coming to school.
We do not allow graffiti on, definitely not on the school, but in notebooks or on books, And our resource advisor is very effective in helping the teachers to deal with that issue and to identify it and to work with the kids in terms of identifying a gang they might be involved in.
You've got the clergy, you've got the business persons, you've got the schools. If all of those people target one specific problem in a community, say we've got a community that has an overrun of graffiti, if all of those particular entities target that particular problem, I guarantee you that community will get that problem removed.
Besides graffiti removal, there are many other examples of prevention and intervention. In Lawrence, Massachusetts, a university basketball coach and a boys' club partner to send 150 children from the city to a week-long basketball camp. But the success of this camp has more to do with teaching life-affirming skills than how to improve your jump shot.
Right, we want to start. We're all like students.
Bert Hamill is the originator of the camp. He's the one that put the thing together. He used to be the head scout from Milwaukee Bucks. And Bert said if he ever became a college head coach, that's exactly what he would do. He would take and he would make a camp for kids in from the city. And Bert came out to Lawrence and said, we want to do something for the kids in the city. And he's just done it and for years, and it's just grown bigger and bigger every year.
Kids go to classes. Classes consist from everything from attitudes to goal setting, decision making, drugs and you, sex education, peer pressure. One of our classes is conflict resolution. The kids how to deal with that. They go to class for 3.5 hours a day in the morning, then it's lunchtime, then it's basketball.
It started off with 40 kids, just a day camp from like 9 to 2. And by the third day, I personally threw out like 20 kids. I was the only coach that was here. I couldn't get anybody because we didn't have a budget. The one kid, Angel Santiago, who is here right now as a coach, was thrown out the first day. He was thrown out the second year because he spit at one of my players who I got to coach for me. He ended up as Boy of the Year in the club. He ended up coming to Merrimack College, and right now he's coaching for us. So they are tremendous, tremendous kids, and all you've got to do is give them a chance.
Most young people will benefit from involvement with people who care. In Westminster, California, the Vietnamese community of Orange County, the Westminster Police, and the Probation Department have joined forces to intervene with those already caught in the criminal justice system.
We come in as a supplement to their current programs, and we provide individual counseling for the youth. We provide linkages between the youth and the family, and we try to help them with the re-entry into the community.
Sam and Ann are from the Vietnamese Community Center, and they come here bi-weekly to counsel with the boys that we have in residence who are Vietnamese. And Ann and Sam provide an important adjunct to our program in that they understand the cultural problems, the cultural differences. They've helped to work with the boys to aid them in going back into the community in a productive way.
We've worked with over 100 youth, and we actually saw only 10% of the youth that we worked with has recidivated so far.
Today, people from all walks of life need to get together in their communities, all races, cultures, religions. This openness would help young people break down the walls of prejudice by allowing them to experience each other's differences. In Bensonhurst, New York, at John Dewey High School, a school bordered by rival communities, an English teacher intervenes.
Luckily for this school and for the kids involved and the community, Robert DeSena, who was an English teacher at the school at the time, gave an ultimatum to the kids. He brought them all together and said, you either live in fear for the rest of your lives because this is where you live and this is how you have to go home, and you can either dodge bullets in school and going home, or you could settle this and we could move on peacefully. They chose, thank God, to settle it. And as a result, all of the gang members that had been a part of this volatile situation sat down and finally began to talk. And thus, the Council for Unity began.
The Council for Unity is a place where you will be listened to.
The Council for Unity is a place where you can be yourself. Now, that may sound like a very minor thing. It's probably the most difficult thing in life because most young people need approval. That's why they join gangs, and that's why they will surrender their free will for the approval of a gang. What this program has done is taken youngsters from segregated communities and brought them together in relationships.
Before I came to this program, I only hung out with people just like me. I didn't hang out with like black people, Chinese people, white. Like I only hung out with other people like me. And now it's like I got to learn about everybody else, that we're all the same, we all the same problems and stuff like that.
Now, if you can take that kind of experience and channel it, they can go back to the 8, 9, 10, and 11-year-old kids and be the most appropriate mentors, better mentors than teachers even, because they've gone through it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take the people who've been initiated by those hard streets, by those cruel streets, and send them right back and redeem the people, the youngsters who are following them.
Mentoring is a dynamic way for us to help children avoid gangs. It offers businesses, individuals, actually everyone, a one-on-one opportunity to steer children in a positive direction.
One of the things that every person can do is begin to mentor some kid. Cost you no money, just cost you time, some tears, and you'll find that that kid is just like any other kid. He's looking for a hug. He's looking for somebody that will tell him not how he will fail, but how he shall achieve. And the stories are replete of this.
For instance, we have a young female student who is interested in journalism. We have a mentor who is a journalist, feature writer for the Chicago Tribune. She has really embraced this girl and has spent way beyond what we could have ever expected her to spend in time with this particular student.
Sometimes the students they're like Jeopardy students, you know. They're basically in trouble in not graduating. And what we try to do is try to curve that. Basically show them how important school is. Because without an education, there's no job. When he first started, his grades weren't so high. Today, he's been doing outstanding in this class. I mean, he went from a low D to a high B, possibly an A. He might get an A before the end of the semester. I have something to give. And whether it's just companionship or being able to listen to someone, it just shows the teenagers today, hey, someone cares, someone wants to listen, someone wants to help.
Our employees benefit from being involved in this program because they can get involved in the community. They get a real sense of pride and ownership of their own community, a sense of worth because they're involved with the students. About 80% of our students currently are at risk of not graduating from high school. They come from various backgrounds, various ethnicities, male and female. Many of the students that come into the program we know are gang involved, and that's where our mentors come in.
She's one of my best friends. She's more than that. I feel like she's a sister to me. It was very hard. I had a big decision to make. You know, was I gonna hang around my friends and go around and do this and such things as fighting or going around starting trouble? If it wasn't for that, you know, that one day that I went to that meeting and met my mentor and she got me involved with this program, I don't know where I'd be.
Children want an opportunity to succeed. They have the same basic needs we do, the need for pride, self-respect, feeling the satisfaction of a job well done. They don't want handouts. What they're lacking is know-how, job skills, and opportunity. So when people from business reach out to teach them these skills, the results benefit the entire community.
When kids get involved in gangs, they get involved because they want to work on self-esteem. They want somebody to be their friend. They want somebody to listen to them. It's some kind of means of power. That's what we're finding out by working with businesses, that those alternatives can be met in other ways. Kids won't go to gangs. They'll go to these other kinds of programs. That's what this program's all about. Any business in the world can do it.
So from a very small concept on this campus, which initially just involves franchise tax board, and then with the combined schools with Aetna and Foundation Health, we now have large players like Intel, Bank of America. In fact, right now we have in excess of 90 businesses that are calling me and wanting to work with them in their businesses.
The ironic thing about it is about 10 years ago, I found myself in the same spot that Jerry Cotton's in today, and that is choices, making a choice. Education being one, and also working in the business environment. And today, our program gives them an opportunity to get that practical experience of working in a professional environment, seeing what it's all about. Working a 9-to-5 job, per se.
Yeah, my first day here, I was so nervous I couldn't get my hands to stop shaking, but now a lot of people come to me for answers, and I mean, I'm 17 years old, I have grown people coming to me for answers, and that feels real good. Before I got this job, I was on a bad road, you know, and with this in the way, you know, it keeps my time occupied, which is good for me. You know, then I get the chance to help out my mom at home and, you know, do things that I want to do and buy things that I want to buy.
And it seemed short-sighted to me that every large employer who has a strategic planning process and looking at least 5 years into the future is not involved in worrying about what is happening to our kids, both in school and on the streets.
Getting involved in gang violence prevention demands innovation. Take an ex-gang member with a vision and a police chief willing to take a stand. The result, in Bell Gardens, California, a neighborhood center for youth.
I started trying to get together with certain gang members here in the area and trying to get them to, you know, talk. I was trying to act as a mediator at that time. And we got a new chief of police. And so we got together and we put together a proposal on this youth center. So this building here itself used to be the old Humane Services building. And I found out they were going to demolish this whole place, just level it out and make it into an empty lot. And I said, well, wait a minute, we can do something with this. We have gang problems. Our kids in the city really have nowhere to go other than the streets. Let's give them somewhere to go. And let's give them some guidance.
My role is working with the youth. I work with the inner part, the heart, to see where the heart is at. Because there's a lot of hatred, a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness in the heart that needs to come out. So I work in that area, the inner part, the spirit. We had a little struggle from the beginning for the fact that gang members being here and tagging crews and different other people that didn't go to school, dropouts. But now that we came in here and seen the successful, some of the kids, now they're with us instead of against us now.
And in a sense, it really helped them out bringing the youth center in here because now all the gangs see this as a neutral zone. There's no gang banging around the center or in the center. And so really, these homes all around the center are really safer than a lot of homes miles away from here. As you see, there's no tagging on the walls around the center, and the kids themselves enforce that rule. If they see another kid come by and start tagging on the walls, one of the kids from the center will go up to that kid and tell him, hey, there's no tagging around here, we don't allow that. Because of my past history, you know, growing up in the street gangs, going through prison, being involved with drugs, a lot of times I see kids come in and they're telling me about certain problems they're having, and I see myself in that kid. You know, I advise a kid where he's headed. And if you keep going the way you're going, your life's going to be ruined. I don't want to see kids make the same mistakes that I made.
Many youth organizations in our neighborhoods include prevention and intervention as a part of their philosophy. Children are attracted to the fun activities they offer, but the real benefit is that they provide positive alternatives, guidance, and counseling to help these children avoid gang involvement.
In 1969, during the height of the gang problem in New York City, they built this boys club at that time. This Boys and Girls Club was the saving grace of this community, and it was the saving grace of Frank Sanchez. And at 6 years old, I walked into the club. It provided me with an opportunity and an alternative to use my skills, whether they were just recreational or educational. I think that was the essence of this building, the fact that when you came in here, there was somebody who cared, somebody who wanted to help you, and somebody who really wanted you to succeed, and that's what makes this so successful. The boys didn't want to be bad. They didn't want to do the things that they were doing in the streets. They didn't want to be beating up each other. They didn't want to break into cars or break into homes, but they had nothing else to do. They had no other alternatives. This building, when it opened up a host of alternatives. We got involved in basketball, we got involved in baseball, educational classes, drama classes. So it opened up a whole opportunity for us, and we were able to vent our frustrations and vent our angers positively with people who really cared.
I've started my first singing lesson here. I've had my first drama lesson, my first musical play. I've done everything here. Everything has been here my first, you know.
We have a very special touring group here at Kips Bay Boys and Girls Club. It's called K Company. There are teenagers, the ages of 12 to 18, and there are 33 of them, and they work so hard, and we just received an award in April as the outstanding and the best program in cultural enrichment in Boys and Girls Clubs of America.
Whether through dance, rap, drama, or even a community march, young people everywhere are fighting peer pressure with their own brand of positive energy.
I went to the city of Chicago and requested funding for a project. We took some graduate art students, we took art graffiti artists that had come out of the street, combined them and got permission from Metro Station and created the Circle Journey in Muriel.
For most of them, it was quite a positive experience, and they were even able to express, maybe for the first time, the fact that they really would like to continue, this type of thing, that they would like to go to art school, that they would like other avenues of expressing their art, as opposed to the lifestyle that many of them have developed in, which is tagging and graffiti and spray can art in these kind of obscure, illegitimate places.
In Sacramento, a local church organizes a community march and street rally to help show that there are alternatives to gang violence.
You may have come to see a play, but we wanted to show you reality. You see, this is taking place every day in our neighborhoods. Every day, violence is taking place. What's the answer to all the madness? What's the answer to all the gang violence? Every time one of our young people die, it's our responsibility. It's not just the police officer, it's not the governors, it's our responsibility.
I need to know that I can take off these glasses and look at you in the eyes, I know that homeboys are dying on a daily basis because of this, man. I want to do something good with my life, man. I want to get somewhere in life, man. But with your help, man, with people like yourself who can touch me, who can look into me and can see the positive in me, I might be able to make it. And if I can make it, man, any other homeboy can make it too, man. All I'm asking is for a little help.
I grew up as a gang member, wearing baggy pants, long trench coats, bandanas. And in many ways, I didn't think I was gonna make it. I didn't have no hope. But somebody came into my life and touched me, showed me that I was positive, and opened the door for me. You see, I went through a change, a metamorphosis. And today, I'm a counselor, a professional. I go out and touch students. I show them that they have the capabilities of becoming anything they want to become, going to college, being productive. I believe in them. I trust them. I respect them. But I'm only one person. You see, if I could do it, you could do it too.
Churches across the country are playing an important role in prevention and intervention.
In the Christian tradition, we make it very plain that Jesus did not come for people that were wonderfully fixed. He came for people that were broken and bruised. I have people in this congregation. They were drug dealers. Then they sat down and people mentored them and literally loved the hell out of them. And now they're officers in the church. Interestingly enough, the excitement is the ability to go out and see someone who was a broken vessel be totally restored.
Perhaps the strongest supporters of prevention and intervention are men and women on the front lines, those who deal directly with the gangs, police, corrections, and probation officers.
We are probation officers who are assigned to a gang suppression unit, which means that our primary purpose is for the protection of the community and to make it real uncomfortable for those young people who are documented gang members who are on probation to be gang members. Always in our mind is that our main purpose is to protect the community, but we know that you can't just lock people up, so therefore we are involved in rehabilitating efforts with that person, intervention with that person and their family, crisis counseling and crisis intervention.
Parents getting involved and supporting their children is a crucial step in preventing them from joining gangs. In Orange County, the local bar association started an early intervention program for first-time juvenile offenders. The goal of the program to help children and parents work together to prevent further criminal involvement.
We do this in a courtroom setting. We take them into a holding cell that's behind the courtroom,
and we sit them down in there, and they can see all the graffiti all over the walls. They can see the toilet that's open to everybody that sits there. And we basically tell them, this is potentially what could happen to you if you decide either to continue to make poor decisions or you decide that this program is not for you. The first part of the program is very confrontational.
21 years old, I used to be a gang member. Thought I was #1 gangster. That's all I tried to be. I'm trying to back up my neighborhood, my homeboys, people that said they were my friends. They were never around when I got busted. They never wrote me a letter or nothing. I never seen them again. Now I'm sitting in state prison, and I'm in a different world.
It's their first brush with the law. They've been referred in by a parent, a probation officer, a police officer, perhaps a school. Some of them cry. They've never been held accountable before. And it's very much, it's cross-examination. The second session, the kids take a test. It's during that period of time that the parents get to interact. And it's really exciting to see the parents start to talk amongst themselves. They realize that they're not the only ones that have these problems. They start talking about solutions. So the amount of time actually involved in it is really minimal for the returns that we get on it.
Over the years, since 1979, we've served thousands of kids and families. And I think the most exciting thing for me is that the families are doing this together. They need to know resources to turn to. They need to have a separate parent group where they can talk to professionals away from their child and find out different strategies that may work. They need somewhere to turn.
Prevention programs once geared toward older children are now essential at a disturbingly young age.
And is there anybody in here who knows someone who's been killed by a gang member? Raise your hand. Prevention and intervention is so good for us because what it does, aside from the suppression, which is in many ways depressing, is it gives us hope that if we start early enough, if we give kids alternatives, they don't have to get to where we are with a lot of our serious gang offenders in this unit. And they're so happy that someone's there to listen to the kinds of answers they have for solving their problem, but more importantly, to listen to their fears, and then to allay their fears through some examples of how they can really not become involved. And I think it's just probably one of the best things that we do is talking to 3rd and 4th graders.
We do such a good job of promoting violence that our children don't have very many other strategies. So whether they're in gangs or not, when they have trouble with anger, when they have trouble with conflicts, they aren't very good at doing anything other than beating people up.
Nationally, there are many exceptional programs that give youth tools for resolving conflicts. When a sheriff's department partners with schools and the community, the result, another promising approach.
The Choices program is unique to many other different programs where it is very holistic. It incorporates 5 main components, first of which is a 17-week school-based curriculum. The curriculum focuses in on a number of different issues. We talk about gangs, we talk about drugs, we talk about family, we talk about community issues, we talk about issues like conflict resolution, anger management. We begin to see young people who are reducing their trips to the office. We're beginning to see a reduction of fights or potential crime occurring on campus, which is a positive thing because it begins to create a sense of safe schools for these young people. During the tutoring part of what we do, we begin to see people who want to learn, and there are some wonderful things because we begin to connect them with a positive role model, a positive person in their lives. The third component is begin to look at rebuilding families, to begin to look at empowering families. And so what needs to occur is really a connection. And the fourth component is an experiential wellness education, which gives them an opportunity to build relationships by presenting these young people with a series of challenges that may be perceived as life-threatening, but ultimately build a sense of history and experience and relationship with one another. And last and most important is we need to have an ability to sustain the changes we are able to create. And that's done through Boys and Girls Club, Campfire, and other different agencies that begin to do things like job training, career education, sports, get them involved in community service projects, make them feel valuable, make them feel responsible, make them feel accountable to the community, which is a powerful experience for them to have.
While organizations depend on many people for their success, it's important to remember one person with a vision can spark change that will have far-reaching effects.
A lot of times people think that they can't do anything as an individual, but Midnight Basketball was founded nationally by one individual, and his name is Mr. G. Van Standifer, lived in Glen Arden, Maryland. And he just got tired of seeing the young men on the streets. So he started thinking about this controlled basketball program with workshops. And he started right in his community, and it has grown to 42 cities nationally. The ages are between 17 and 25. The basketball is the part that we use to get them in the gym. And once we have their captive audience, then we can pump them with all kind of information like AIDS awareness and job development, career opportunities.
We give the young people something to do. This is how it benefits law enforcement. When they come here and scream for their favorite players, all that energy is expelled, and that's what we like to see. Give the kids something positive to do.
We make the program work because they laid out a plan for us and gave us the opportunity, and it was up to us to follow that plan and make it happen. It took our heart and their heart too as well, though, to make this thing happen. And fortunately, it's been happening and it's been working. And if you ask me, it's gonna work from now for a long time running.
These strategies are working. Thousands of Americans, people like ourselves, are giving of themselves to reclaim their children and win back their communities.
Stop using the excuses of just put them in jail. Oh, the jails are full with them. Look, they can't even read. Stop using those excuses to sit home and do nothing.
Well, it's no longer an inner city problem. Gangs are all around us. And if we don't, as a community and as individuals in those communities, have the hope that they can pull themselves out of it and make it because we're there to support them, we're going to lose an entire generation.
It's a person that made the difference. The building provided me a safe haven where I can go and I felt protected and safe and I knew people cared. But it was the individual. It was the person who cared the most, and it was the person who made me the success that I feel I am today.
The time has come for us to make a choice. We can deny the problem exists. We can deny we have a part in its solution, or we can resolve to join with our community. Each one of us has the power to stop the spread of gang violence. In effect, we can become agents of change.
And a lot of stuff comes not financially, but from the heart. So if she respects us, we needed somebody like her to believe in us to make us believe in ourselves. And that's what this program has done. Gave people a sense of respect and pride, not only for themselves, but for their community and their fellow man.
The national government is increasingly interested in after-school programs and in changing the schools themselves, in investing in young people. When we invest in our young people, we're investing in our future.
It's really important to distinguish between prevention, intervention, and suppression. Prevention, we're trying to get to that population that's at risk of gang involvement but hasn't gotten involved yet. When we talk about intervention, we're talking more about the wannabe. And suppression, we're now talking about taking those individuals who have become hardcore gang members, who are committing crime, who are committed to the gang lifestyle, and suppressing those harms and removing those individuals.
At very root, we have to engage kids, all kids, as active partners in rebuilding community and in making things better. We cannot do it just for them. They have to feel damn proud that they're part of it and they've done something.
From their very first cartoon all the way through the latest superhero movie, we teach our children that violence is funny, is entertaining, is successful, is the hero's first choice, is painless, is guiltless. We do such a great job of repeating that message that they have these tremendous appetites for violence. But the real prevention of violence is not arrest and incarceration. That's responding. The prevention of violence is education, it's social norm changing, it's counseling, it's behavior modification, it's giving kids something healthy to do.
Boys and Girls Clubs of America runs a youth gang program that is funded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention out of the U.S. Justice Department. What we are learning from the youth gang prevention sites, of which there are 20 around the country, is that community collaboration is vital and important to the success of the program. Clubs can't do it alone. They have to be able to work with all the other community agencies that are dealing with kids.
But this is a national program, and what's so wonderful about it, I was in San Francisco recently visiting their league, and I could have sworn that I saw one of my players on the court. So it's nationally happening at the same time. So that means that the crime rate is not only being reduced in Cleveland, but it's being reduced on a national level.
You have to be careful about how you define gangs, because they do move, and again, the activity varies from community to community, so communities need to take a look at that.
A lot of communities and law enforcement agencies in particular are very cynical about using ex-gang members as consultants. But the philosophy I take, and believe me, I was probably the most cynical person in the world. I've worked law enforcement and parole for 23.5 years, 4.5 years working with DEA, 16 of my years of the career has been working intelligence, apprehension of escapees and missing parolees, and intelligence on gang members. So as far as being cynical, you couldn't find a more cynical person than working this. But you learn real quick that the most valuable people that you can have and recruit within your community are those people that has been involved in it and know what's going on.
When you're working with a community that wants to get involved, that wants to do something, usually they're reacting to a problem. And so the first thing that we have to deal with is a lot of fist slamming and finger pointing about who's not doing what's not taking place. And you have to work with individuals in that group to start to break that down. And what you're really getting out are giving people a chance to vent, to get rid of some of their hostility, and then moving them into an action phase.